All right, my friend, we're live. We're recording. How are you today, Tai Pilimai?
Fantastic. How are you, Mr.
Good,
Mr.
good.
Work?
I appreciate you taking some time out. We all know Tai is one of the most well-known, respected brokers and lenders, probably in Northern California. Tai, you've been in this industry for a long period of time, and I'd love to turn it over to you, and you can share a little bit about your qualifications and your past history. So without further ado, welcome, and you've got the floor.
Thank you. I'm actually blushing a little bit, but yeah, I've first job, first career choice, straight out of college, and once I stopped playing ball, I'm going on my 16th year. I love the job. I love the career. I love the opportunity. I really wanted something that I could do to interface with people, and it just ended up being money. Was a conduit to where I could actually work with people and help people figure out how to get financing done. And it's a fun, it's an emotional business, but at the end of the rainbow, you get to help people, which is how you make it through all the rough patches, kind of like what we're going through now.
I love it. And that's really one of the reasons that we're doing this short series, is to help other business owners, people in our profession, and consumers to understand what's happening within our industry, and maybe some techniques or tactics to make it through this storm, let's call it, without much negativity. So I'm going to dive into these 10 questions, Tai. Do your best to answer them. I know you will. And without further ado, by the way, we appreciate you and your team at Commerce Home Mortgage. And as we wrap up this, one of the last questions is going to be what myself and our the audience can do to serve you. So just be thinking about that as we move along. So, okay. Number one, as a business owner, what have been the challenges of working from home during the shelter in place for you, your team, and your customers?
Okay. Biggest challenge initially was getting non-remote employees or teammates into remote situations to where they could be effective. The second part of that was making sure we had efficient communication throughout the entire process and manufacturing chain, so that we weren't letting our customers kind of feel the brunt of it, because it was that initial week was tough. On the sales side of things, sales individuals work remote a lot of times. A lot of times they're in the office a couple hours a day, maybe a few days a week, things of that nature. But our operations team, from loan openers to processors to underwriters, funders, underwriting managers, et cetera, are typically used to being in these pod setups where you can, open your door, walk over to the next office and say like, hey, Sue, I got a bit of a situation here. Have you seen this before? If so, how could you overcome it? So that was probably that communication piece was the biggest challenge there. But I think we did a pretty good job. Not too many customers felt it.
You could share what systems or what, how you got through that? Like, was it a program? Was it a system? Was it just setting time up, for a specific call time? Anything you could share?
Yeah. Fortunately, our fulfillment system, Encompass, is totally mobile enabled, so that wasn't too bad. We've got another product that we use called TeamViewer, where we can do similar video conferencing, group conferencing, things of that nature. You could do instant chats now on your computer, where you get a little pop up and it'll say like, hey, Andrea, I got the payoff demand in on, so-and-so, like, are you ready? What do you got right now? Can we get it submitted for final or whatever that is? So getting used to different styles of communications, kind of like when texting became popular. Some people totally embraced it. Others, it's taken them, a decade or so to kind of really get into that. But once they do, like as an example, my mother-in-law, she retired a couple years ago from Kaiser. She was a nurse, and all of a sudden she learned how to text message. So we're getting these little text messages with like emojis and GIFs and stuff like that from her. Prior to that, I had known her forever. Prior to that, you send her a text message, you'd have crickets. It'd be left on unread. She didn't even look at it. You'd go over to her house. Yeah, we'd send you a text message, and she'd have like 600 text messages unread. But now she, she loves doing it. So
Okay.
adapting.
Yeah. So, you know, and I think this goes into the second question, which is, you know, talking a little bit about the business model. Is there a you know, are you rethinking the business model, or how do you see it playing, or you know, this pandemic affecting, you know, maybe the mortgage industry? And the follow-up question to that is along these lines, you know, along the idea or thought of the business model. You know, what do you feel is you know, your team and Commerce Mortgage's value proposition?
This has definitely made us reevaluate and retool. We retooled our entire business model, really our entire company model in a span of 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's
under 2 weeks. And fortunate, we have leadership at all levels that are creative thinkers, and you know, they see issues as opportunities. And you know, one of those issues is mobile deployment. So we've had all of these new technological products and projects we've been working on for, you know, the last 2, 3, 4 years, whatever that is. And from, you know, DocuSign to e-closings to things of that nature, where it's really a convenience thing, but you know, every state has different laws. So it just, yeah, it's some of the electric signing is approved in Colorado, not in California, vice versa.
right.
So it wasn't like a huge push on that, but you get to a situation like this where you're having, you know, notaries cancel, title companies close, homeowners not wanting appraisers in their homes, things of that nature. And then you start to realize, oh shoot, okay, this is important.
Right.
Thankfully, we were far enough along the process to where we could implement some of those things that helped some of the more manual wet sign documents, things of that nature. But it really it honed in on the fact that we really need to be mobile at the drop of a dime. We need to be mobile. We need to be functional, 100% functional. I'm 80% functional from my laptop outside the office. But we need really strong internet encryption and you know, anything that would allow us to be 100% up and running from home at the drop of a dime, as opposed to well, there's certain things like with funding loans, there's, you know, the Fed has IP address verifications. So if you try and fund a loan from an IP address that's non-corporate or non-approved, boom, they reject your wire, things of that nature. So, which fortunately we were able to get around that. But, you know, and there's a lot of people involved in that technological shift.
Well, you guys seem like you've managed to do a great job in turning the ship and you know, servicing the client, which is, I know, of most importance. Okay, so moving on. So do you see this as an opportunity for your team? You know, I know you're running a large sales team, and for, you know, potentially Commerce Mortgage to, I put the words in here, rebuild the brand, and maybe it's not rebuild the brand because, you know, the brand is really you, I think. And so, you know, the ultimate question is here, where do you see an opportunity for you, your team, or the company?
Tons of opportunity. I mean, it's anytime, I'm a firm believer in anytime that you're forced to kind of get out of your comfort zone and stretch and think of new ways to provide the same or better levels of service, you create opportunities for yourself. Where that opportunity is to learn a new system or to be better at asking our customers, both internal and external, how they prefer to communicate. That's an opportunity for us. And in terms of retooling a brand, I mean, if we went from 45 days ago to being probably one of the largest non-QM lenders in the nation, and that product line is completely evaporated. That's, at any given month, was 20 to 25% of our business, right? And in 2 weeks, gone.
Yeah.
Right. So at that point, we're going, all right. And part of our structure is a little bit different than most companies. We're a CDFI, Treasury certified organization. So we have to help. We don't know we have to. We are chartered by the Treasury to go in and provide financing and capital to underbanked and underserved communities. So a lot of that market are self-employed business owners, small business owners. And we had a real specific product line specifically around how to help those individuals. And with that product line being gone, you know, it got us thinking, well, how do we, like, what do we do? We have to do this. This is part of our designation. This is part of our charter from the Treasury. So, all right, so how do we do things? Well, government lending, down payment assistance lending, all these other types of loans still fit into that category. So what we've had to do in a real short period of time is become an absolute expert in areas we were already good in, but not great.
Yeah.
So that's what we've been doing, and we had to do that in like a 2-week span, and it's kind of like drinking water out of a fire hose, but it's at the same time it's fun. You get on the other side of that bell curve and you start rocking, and you've got a whole new sense of energy and purpose, and you know, you're fishing in different ponds, you're talking to different people. So yeah, it's been fun, but at the same time, anytime you're in a position where you're forced to change or you're forced to improve, it's amazing what you know, we can do as humans.
Yeah, I mean, just from 30,000 feet, we're communicating with each other more than I think we normally do.
Totally agree.
Even with family, you just alluded to that with you know, your mother-in-law. You know, I'm seeing other families doing you know, Zoom dinners. I'm seeing social cocktail hours with Zoom.
Oh yeah.
You know, and we're doing these. We wouldn't have been doing this call, you know, if it wasn't for COVID, or you know, Zoom call and questions if it wasn't for COVID-19. So in some capacities, you know, the silver lining of this thing is, and you alluded to it earlier, was, you know, the goal is to provide new and better levels of service than before.
Yep.
So thanks for pointing that out. So let's talk about goals for a minute. You know, how have your business goals, or you know, your branch's business goals for 2020 been affected?
Great question.
Yeah.
So the total number in terms of goals, like the actual funding, the dollars, the number of transactions, oddly enough,
Gone up.
up. Yeah.
Okay.
Part of what I was talking about in kind of being forced to change, that made us shift our model a little bit, fish in different ponds. All of a sudden, we're starting to see all of these ponds and these lakes and these oceans that we haven't fished in for years. You're going, wow, we can do a lot of good. We can help a lot of people. We just haven't been looking here.
Yeah.
Right. And so we were kind of forced to shift and forced to change. And here we are and looking at it. So we started, literally, I was on a call this morning for almost an hour, and we were going over new opportunities from a company-wide perspective. Like, hey, who are you talking to and why? What organizations? How are you helping? What was your value proposition? What were they asking for? You know, like, where can we kind of like plug the hole for them on the ship? And it's actually, it's fun. It's kind of weird. You know, we're working in empty offices or at home, but it's fun. It's change, you know, and it's being forced on us. So you either thrive or,
yeah,
you know,
lions or lambs.
retire.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, 5. So how are you guys currently, and you alluded to it a little bit, but maybe you can elaborate more on it, but how are you facilitating bringing people together? You've got, you know, there's so many people involved in a real estate transaction, customers, clients, employees, you know, or how are you, maybe you could talk about this a little bit if you're not currently doing that, which it sounds like you are, but what maybe, you know, some tactics or techniques that you guys are talking about or brainstorming of how we can bring all these folks together.
Video conferencing is one of them. I mean, it's video conferencing, texting, group texting. There are Facebook groups that we've started, contributing towards, which, you know, we've been members of for umpteen year, or I don't even know how long they've been around, but I can't recall ever posting anything inside any of those groups. And they're typical industry discussions. Some of it's local stuff, like what are you doing for your kids? How are you keeping them busy? How are you burning off all that extra energy? It's just leveraging technology to humanize communication again, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like we seeing each other and talking to each other, and not just email.
It's interesting you say that, because we've gotten wrapped up into, you know, texting and you know, brief conversations, no connection. And to be honest with you, I don't know how you feel or how many you've done, but I'm loving these Zoom calls, and I'm thinking, how to adapt my own business to save me time, save the client time, and also still have that connection. And I see us doing a lot more of these post COVID-19 than we ever have done before.
Completely agree.
Yeah. Okay.
So actually, quick story. My grandpa Ted, I think it was his 93rd birthday on, what is today, Wednesday? Or today's Thursday, so Tuesday, right? So obviously, he's, 93 years old, grandma's 87, 88, something along those lines. And so we all want to be around them, but at the same time we can't because of, they're in that kind of like hot zone. So we're trying to figure out, hey, how do we do this? And, we're FaceTiming with our, grandparents. My kids are FaceTiming with their great grandparents, which is super cool, and they love it. It's like my grandpa was just about to say, F it. I've been here for 90 something years. I'm going to come and hang out. And you're like, no. We've got this thing. It's called, video chat. And
right. And that,
let's do that.
It's incredible. When I'm hearing people within families doing these, family dinners together, it's like, another, I said silver lining before, but I think the gold lining of all this is understanding that, we waste a lot of time in especially us business owners, we waste a lot of time that could be pushed towards life enriching, for us, things that are life enriching for us, for our family, and for our friends and clients.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
Okay. So number 6, how are you seeing people? This could be customers, employees, people in your organization that may be above you, getting through this. Many people, they're afraid. Some people are optimistic. Some people are hopeful, terrified. So, what are you doing, and what are you sharing with your team, in order to keep them optimistic or clients to keep them optimistic during this time frame?
About once or twice a week, I'll send something out, not necessarily to inspire, but to remind people, like, social distancing is not socially disconnecting. Right. So just to do certain things, on top or outside of that, everyone's a little bit different. Some people, are totally like not affected whatsoever. It seems seemingly not affected. And then others are like just shaking in the corner all day, and you just got to talk to them and try and be a helper. Everyone's going to have a different concern or a different issue for the same boogeyman, and you just got to be a helper and listen. And I've had conversations with people 10, 15 minutes long. There was really no point. There was no like start and finish.
Right.
Just listening. Just talk it out.
Yep.
Talk it out. Okay. I mean, I had a conversation. I was actually with Moeller. We're driving up, and I had a 20-minute conversation, and I think he counted, and I think I said 8 words. You know what I mean? And it was funny. So I finally get off the call. He's like, "What just happened?"
He's like,
I'm like,
I feel great, baby.
I was like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "What just happened?" He goes, "You didn't even say anything." And I'm like, "What? It wasn't for me to talk. It was for me to listen."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just, that individual, and that was a customer who we were talking to, totally good. They just needed to offload and ask questions, even though they asked the same question 5, 6, 7 times. I mean, it is what it is, but everyone's a little different in that respect. But yeah, a lot of listening.
Okay, I love it. So, personally, how have you been affected? We've got kids, we've got spouses, we've got sports and stuff. So, how have you been affected?
Yeah. It's weird because, we're not out and about. I'm a pretty social individual. I like to go out and have lunch, and I like to go do happy hours with people and golf. And so from that standpoint, for me is a little weird. But the biggest bummer, I think, has been our daughter's volleyball. Yeah. She's worked so hard for the last year, 2 years, right? And she really started putting it together. Her team was doing really well. and, you know, they were going to tournaments, winning games finally after getting skunked for years. And it was just a bummer. And it was one of those things that it turned from, it used to be kind of like okay, we got volleyball this weekend and all right, let's go, you know, cheerio to, you know, this year being like, all right, so what do we need? Do we have the Gatorades? Do we have the snacks? Do we have the sandwiches? Like, who are we playing? Who's on the, you know? And it was, I don't know, it was just a shift. And now we can't do that. And it's a bummer, but it's the same notion. It's also real fun because she still works. She still trains every day. She still does her sets and her bumps and her spikes. She serves in the backyard for at least an hour a day. I mean, which is super cool. Yeah. You know, I mean, because it's in her, and she's like, well, hey, guess what? Getting ready for next year. Already working, which has been cool.
Love that attitude.
You know, and then, yeah, oh, she's the best, man. I wish I had her drive. I mean, I consider myself a pretty driven individual, but she's something else. And then, you know, Kayleen she's a respiratory therapist, so she's the one in the hospital, her unit on the front line helping individuals with the respirators and intubating and doing all that stuff. So it's kind of mellowed out or smoothed out for her a little bit. But initially, there was a ton of fear. I mean, she would come home. There was a couple nights where she got called in for patients that came into ER that coded that they thought you know, the testing at that point wasn't where it is today. So they thought there was a potential for them to be, you know, positive for COVID. And, you know, she didn't sleep for a couple nights. So she helped this person. She came home, and then they tell her the next day, like, hey, we're testing. We'll get the results back in 4 or 5 days. So she'd be up all night for 2 days, and which is scary. I can only imagine anybody on the front line that are actually treating the affected COVID patients. There was definitely at least a few weeks of a lot of fright and uncertainty.
Yeah, that's got to be stressful for you guys, man. I feel for you.
Yeah.
And positive wishes and health and prayers that everybody makes it through this safe and healthy.
Yep.
You know, definitely.
Agreed.
Okay, a couple more here. So as far as business, going back to business really quick, if this ended tomorrow, how long do you feel this impacts the financial world in lending, but more importantly, impacts your business and your team's business?
If this were to end tomorrow,
yeah.
You know, that's a tough one. Yeah. That's a real tough one. There are a lot of systemic issues in the capital markets that we're just now kind of seeing take a toll on what's happening. I know that the Fed's in there buying bonds, treasuries, junk munis, things of that nature to help facilitate liquidity in the market.
Right.
But it's one of those things. It's tough to see how long that's going to take to unwind. I do know once capital markets comes back, we are again going to retool probably in a modified form back to our non-QM model and push there, because that is a big part of the huge segment of United States. Our small business owners, I want to say they account for 51% of all employees, something along those lines. And so really our job at that point is again to shift, or whatever you want to call it, but a newer version, hopefully a newer and better version of ourselves, and start facilitating that market again. In terms of timing, man, we're human. We snap back quick. And I feel like, and especially, I don't want to say just because we're American, but we do have an awful lot of chutzpah here. And I think when things do change, we get our arms around it. Man, I tell you what, it's going to be rip-roaring and a radical time.
I love it.
In good ways.
I love it. Okay, so number 9, what can we, my viewers, other people in the, that may be watching this on social media, the folks that we're blasting this out to, what can we do to serve you and your team?
Things like this, ask questions, have conversations, reach out. If there's, even if it's the goofiest thing, I still to this day have buddies that won't call me for certain little goofy questions like, I didn't want to bother you. Like, bother me with what?
Right.
It's like calling your dentist and saying, yeah, I got this sore tooth. It just started happening. And they say, like, well, did you overbrush or did you do something like that? Like, oh yeah, I got this new electric toothbrush and I just was grinding in on it. And they're like, well, how about we just like tone down the electric toothbrush a little bit, give it a week and call me.
Right.
I mean, that's, like a minute or two, but it's also nice to connect. Just communicate, communicate and don't be frightful. Opportunities are always going to be good opportunities in any given market. And if you have the right mindset and your eyes are open, man, I mean, I still think it's a great time to buy. It's an amazing time to buy. Rates are extremely affordable. Home prices are very affordable in most communities, especially ours. We're not nearly as impacted as like a San Francisco or an LA, anything like that. And again, we have this amazing opportunity, especially in our area. I'm obviously a little biased, but we've got air and space. We're not living on top of each other.
Yeah.
The infection rate here is super, super low, and that's by we live out here for a reason.
Right.
And
it's a great family town, just in general. Great
it is.
Schools.
It is. And when we first got put in shelter in place, the agent that sold us our house like 5 or 6 years ago, I actually shot her a text message and I said, hey, I just wanted to reach out and say thank you for helping us find this home. I could not think of a better place to be, shelter, or better home to be shelter in place or to quarantine or something along those lines. I can actually show you the text message, but and I just thought like, hey, that would be nice, because I'm sure like everyone's got their own issues or their own fears. She didn't reply back for a couple hours, but then literally reply back was like, oh my gosh, I'm tearing up. Thank you so much. And then coming to find out, she has children that are in New Jersey, right? Which is obviously right next to New York, right in the hotbed of it. And she's like, oh my gosh, you made my day, and that wasn't like why I was doing it. I just thought like, hey, I'm forced to be here. Fortunately, I really like my house.
Right.
Like, and thank you, because she found it for us. Like we were out of town. I mean, if you're one of those individuals, work with a good agent, build rapport, let them know, ask questions, talk to them, let them know what you're looking for. You never know. They might find you something that's not even on market. Like I'm sure you do a lot of pocket listings and you have conversations with people. But if you're prepared for that opportunity, when the opportunity arises, boom.
I love what you said. And here's what I took out of that is, man, people are in need of some positive thoughts these days. And, something that takes you 3 or 4 seconds to do right here can literally change somebody's, the perspective on their day. The second thing that I'll share that I heard from you, and this was on the last question, was I just lost it in my head, but it was it had to do with positive energy. I'll come back to it in a minute here. It's
sure.
right on the tip of my tongue here. But I'm going to go into the next question. One piece of advice. This is for both business owners and other real estate related professionals. One piece of advice for other business owners and also for realtors, brokers, or lenders during this time frame. One piece of advice.
Be a helper. I mean, real simple.
Yeah.
Be a helper. Everyone's going to have different needs at different times. Just be a helper. Listen for people that need to talk. Talk to people that need to listen. But stay connected with people. Reach out. We did some. We went through our past database clients. For anybody that was first responders, police, fire, doctors, nurses, CNAs, like you name it. And we did handwritten thank you notes. And it wasn't like even on company letterhead or anything. We just did handwritten thank you notes saying, hey, just wanted to thank you for what you do on a day-to-day to protect our lives. Boom. That was it.
I love it.
Had nothing, no business card, no anything. You sign your real name, whatever. And I think we sent that out like a week and a half ago. And who knows? I mean, someone might get it and be like, oh, I needed that. Or some might get in like, oh, what's this garbage? But, you know, who cares?
Be a
It's
helper.
the thought that counts.
Be a
Yeah,
helper.
be a helper.
So I remember the thing that you said earlier. It was, you know, people often see folks like you and sometimes maybe even people like me, we're cranking every day. We've got a lot of things going on and they don't want to quote unquote bother us, you know, with a small little question. But what they don't realize is most of the time, you know, you're an extrovert, you like to be social, you like to hear from them, that it's not bothering us at all. It's in some cases even making us feel valuable and like we're a helper.
Yep.
And so what I got out of that is, you know, both sides of the equation. You know, don't feel like you're bothering somebody. Maybe that bother that you think is really going to make their day because you've reached out to them and asked for help.
That's a great point.
Yeah,
That's a great point.
I love it. Well, we've gone significantly over our timeline, but dude, this has been
Okay.
it's been a lot of fun, and I really appreciate you. I got stuff out of this call. I appreciate that, and you know, really, you know, wish positive thoughts for you and your family and safety as well during this time frame, man. You've always been there to help me out when I needed it, and so I appreciate that, you know, from a personal perspective too.
Likewise, my man. Anything I can do.
Okay, buddy. Take care.